Tokyo Nexus panel. My name is Andrew Sumner. Hey, come on, let's have the applause down. You're all so kind. That is very much appreciated. I'm the COO of Titan Comics from glorious downtown London, England. We've been privileged all these many years to be the publishers of Blade Runner. My friend, partner and colleague, not partner in a personal sense, but a professional one of course, although Jeff is very attractive. Jeff Connor, the director of publishing from Alcon Entertainment, the man who has kept the Blade Runner flame alive for many years. Give this man a round of applause, please. Thank you very much. Somebody else who needs no introduction, but I'll give him one anyway, is our director of publishing of Titan Comics, Ricky Claydon, right here. Now I know it looks like Ricky knows what he's doing as he's manning that desk, as he's manning that console, but I'm here to tell you that when we did the Black Star comic panel with Christian Krug from Smallville, who's one of our writers, yesterday to a packed audience, Ricky managed to kick out a plug and turn off all the electrics in the room for 5 minutes. Yeah. So he's promised not to do that today, right, Rick?
I'll try.
Yeah. Otherwise, it'll be AR Ricky Claydon next time. Right? But thank you very much for joining us. You'll also see some video inserts from a good friend of ours, the big guy David Leach, who's Britain's greatest comics editor. That's not an exaggeration. If you've been to Blade Runner panel before, you'll have seen him on screen before. Once seen, never forgotten. That is all I will say about David. But I think we'll start rocking. So this is the important thing. Everybody in this panel gets a free Blade Runner pin. All panel attendees will receive that, and Jeff has them on his person right now. Secreted somewhere on his person. Okay, right. Also, Blade Runner Tokyo Nexus, to lose is to win San Diego exclusive, is available from our booth 5537. Now, let me tell you about 5537. If you've seen one of our panels before, you might have heard me say this in the past. Our panel is against the wall of the hall as you walk in through entrance door C. Because it is a wall adhering panel, it has a very curious number in the 5500s. Most of the time people find that number and then try to find row 5500. 5500, you try and find it according to the way the whole hall is laid out, you'll be in San Diego Bay before you get to it. So don't try and find row 5500 because it doesn't really exist. Where you need to go to find 5537 is just go to entrance door C, and we're immediately on the left. You can't miss us because we've got a big floor-to-ceiling banner, and we're directly opposite Zenoscope, a beautiful publisher who does material very different to our own. And opposite Sideshow as well, here have a nice brand spanking new booth. It used to be where Diamond Comics was. So that's where we are, the entrance door C. Door C.
Entrance C for comics.
Entrance C for comics, exactly right. And we're also announcing that we are soon to be part of the Blade Runner Humble Bundle. It is live now. If you want to get involved with your digital Blade Runners. Also, if there's anyone new to this comics universe, the Blade Runner 2019, 2029 and 2039 omnibuses are all in stores now, and indeed available from booth 5537. And Jeff, these are the perfect jumping on points for the story we've been telling for the last decade or so.
Yes, it all kind of starts here. We came out in 2019, and then we did 2029, 2039. Now that the story is over, the Ash Saga. How many people here have read it? Show of hands? Okay.
Excellent work, thank you for your support, very much appreciated. I think, Ricky, we might as well show a trailer. What do you reckon? There we go. Let's give that a round of applause.
I think one of the things that's great about that series is that we kept the same creative team throughout the entire run. So it's the same artists, same writers, and I'm very, very proud of it.
Now, Jeff, I've got a question for you about that. Before I ask you that question, though, do you have a question? Any more questions for the audience while we're here? I know we were talking about this.
We were talking about that.
We literally spent 10 to 15 minutes preparing this presentation. So as part of that conversation.
Well, I mean, I wanted to interrogate you guys about, now this is concluded, and we're doing new comics that are going to different areas. Is there anything that you are just dying for us to do, for it to go? Is there something that we're overlooking that you feel the comic should be going? Everyone all at once.
What I would suggest is, we're going to be taking some questions later in a normal manner. If you can have a think about Jeff's question, we won't put you on the spot right now, but if you do have anything for us that would be useful for our creative endeavour, we'd really appreciate it. In the meantime, Jeff, your Blade Runner series has done much of the world building for the Blade Runner universe overall. Now, how does world building differ for you within the medium of comics versus the medium of film, and how is that a useful and interesting thing?
Well, you know, comics are a literary medium, and so we can have more interior dialogue and just more literary techniques that you don't get in film, which is sort of a constant presence. So I think it adds another dimension, and you know, frankly, comics are a superior art form to film. So find it very invigorating. What
we were having that chat with Ridley Scott just the other day.
What we get to do in the comics is explore areas within the timeline and kind of create our own alternative timeline from the films. If the films are 2019 and 2049, or 2019 is when it came out, but we can tell different stories through that, like the Black Lotus. You know, this is around 2032, or Tokyo Nexus. This is when Tyrell is still alive. So we're really exploring different areas, and it's in those ways we can do it more world building and show more dimensions, while still being true to the Blade Runner vibe and the spirit. And they are closely aligned to the canon as we can possibly do, but not trapped by it, as it were.
Hey Jeff, so here's an emotional rather than intellectual question, not that I ever ask intellectual questions, and that would be, how does it feel for you having completed those 3 books, and how does it feel seeing those omnibuses collected like that?
This format is so awesome, and to have it finally be here, looks great on the shelf, one-stop shop, it's all there, and unless we're going to do an artist edition, super oversized, which I think would be a shelf breaker for everybody, you know, this is great. I don't read comics on the iPad. I understand doing that makes a lot of sense, but for me, it's the tactile experience, and Titan does such a good production job, and just I think they really withstand the test of time. I think the Titan's approach to the comic is more European. It's more like Metal Hurlant than, say, American comics, Marvel, DC, Image. And I think that helps set it apart too. And also helps with the world building, the creativity of the artist in portraying that world. It goes beyond what the script is, and they are really a big part of, I think, how the world that we're creating is successful.
Yeah, definitely was going to say that European inflected approach is something that we take very, very seriously, and have spent a long time fine-tuning to get just right, Red. And it's very gratifying actually when people pick up on that, like yourself and like everybody's read this series. I think it's shot all the way through what we do, but it certainly took a lot of care and effort to get it right, but I'm very pleased with the result.
I think it's part of the franchise itself. I mean, Ridley Scott himself is very influenced by Mobius and the Metal Hurlant stuff, and his doodles are in that style. So I think it's just part of the DNA.
And I think that's a good jumping off point for us to talk a bit more about what we're doing with Tokyo Nexus. And what you're about to see is the first of a couple of videos with the big guy himself, David Leach, our head editor on the Blade Runner series, Blade Runner enthusiast if ever there was one. So let's hold it over to David for a second.
Hi San Diego, hope you're having a great time. My name's David Leach and I'm the editor of the Blade Runner range of comics from Titan Comics, and I'm here today to talk to you about Blade Runner Tokyo Nexus and Blade Runner Black Lotus. First up though, I'm going to give you a quick recap of Blade Runner Tokyo Nexus. Blade Runner Tokyo Nexus sees our two heroes, Mead and Styx. Both are combat veterans of a Calanthea mission that went horribly wrong and saw them left as the only two survivors of a team. They were betrayed by a traitor, a Tyrell traitor, who stole the technology that they were using in an experiment and fled. Now they're living in Tokyo while they search for that traitor. Styx is a combat replicant and Meads is his human commander, and they were part of a program called Aurora, which saw the ability for both human and replicant to communicate simultaneously using a device called the yoke. Now that yoke has become deadly important. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, a rogue corporation called Cheshire is experimenting with their own range of replicants and has led itself to a war between two warring Yakuza families. This finds Styx and Meads involved in not only a missing persons case, but also as pawns in a deadly game played by three warring factions. Will they survive?
Do you know the answer?
I'm just as amazed as you are. No, I do know the answer, but the Mix and Steed character, this is the first time, rather than having a solo protagonist, that we have two protagonists, one human, one replicant, and the way they are linked together is also unique. And also we explore the notion that Tyrell isn't the only person who knows how to make replicants, and we never really explored that. They would have to be far away from Los Angeles to do that, and Tokyo seemed like a perfect spot. And the Tokyo version of Blade Runner is very different from the LA version. It's more sunny and clear. It's sort of sunshine noir, as it were, and it's just another take, but it's still very much the noirish inflected crime stories that we like from Blade Runner.
Right on. I mean, and you know, for the first time in a Blade Runner comic, we get to Calanthea. So was it always the intention to explore that war-torn palette in the end?
Well, Calanthea was portrayed in one of the animated shorts leading up to 2049, so it is a world that has been seen before. I think in the way Calanthea works in this story, and of course it's referred to in 2049, it's sort of like our world's Vietnam, or if you're too young for that, maybe Afghanistan. And it's just like this, I don't want to say it's a battle world, but it's where the mega corporations kind of fight it out using mainly replicant soldiers. And Tyrell supplies both sides. You know, that's part of his business model. He's an arms dealer in that sense.
I think that's another interesting aspect of this story, which is that for the first time, we see the monopoly, if you will, of the Tyrell Corporation challenged by another corporation, which is the sinister Cheshire Corp.
Yeah, the fact that someone's building bootleg replicants, Tyrell doesn't like that. And so actually he's sent over a very specialized Blade Runner to clean up that situation for him. So not only are Styx and me caught in the middle of a Yakuza war from two warring families, there's also a Blade Runner out to stop whatever they're doing or get to the bottom of it. And that is another dimension to the storyline.
Now, something I personally love about Tokyo Nexus is that the Blade Runner of the title, Rumiko, really isn't one of the two leads. She's sent by Tyrell to investigate Cheshire, and she becomes an ally of our two heroes, which marks kind of another departure for the series. Was it a deliberate decision on your part, Jeff, to not have the Blade Runner be the lead character?
Yeah, I think there's, I don't know if it's Blade Runner fatigue, but how often are we going to have someone in a trench coat running around? We want to explore other story models and broaden the story possibilities that the world presents. I think, you know, it's a big, big world, and there's lots of stories to tell there. And going out to Tokyo is just part of it. It's a new day for that. So I'm very pleased with how Tokyo Nexus is coming along.
Yeah, now on that note, we now have another video from David. Hopefully this one will instantly be with Sam, and that's for the final issue of Tokyo Nexus, To Lose is to Win. So, take it away, Victor.
Volume 2 of Blade Runner Tokyo Nexus to Win is to Lose, sees Meade and Styx caught up in the events after the Yakuza War, but it also gives us a glimpse into what actually happened back on Calanthea and how the whole Aurora project came to a horrific end. And it is a very action-packed and dramatic volume and needs to be read now. Which brings us very nicely to the last issue, To Lose is to Win, issue 4, on sale in August. This sees the Aurora program Yoke, the thing that everyone's been after and running around and avoiding getting their heads chopped off by samurai, finally in the hands of Styx and Meade. But will it be enough to save them, or is it just going to up a huge new can of worms? You'll have to read it and find out.
Jeff,
Yes.
I see you
Andrew.
enjoying our fine comics.
I am. There's addictive.
It's the feel and the
It
smell
is,
of
it
it, right?
is.
That's the great thing about comic books. Yeah, that's what I love about them too. And without spoilers, Pete, what's the emotional core of To Lose is to Win for you?
Well, I think it's the bond between the two characters. You know, it's the first time, well, it's not the first time, but their link is very intimate. This yoke device that they have, it's like a digital version of telepathy in a way. And they can sense what either thinking is designed as a control device so that they can send out their replicant, I don't want to say avatars, but operatives and work in the field while they were sort of safe back at home. Not that they're drones, but it's kind of like that. But the unintended consequence of the technology is that they form a bond that's very, very intimate and that goes beyond what the intention of the technology is, which some people feel is dangerous and why they wanted to shut that program down.
Nice one. And how do you guys feel about an announcement at this moment in time, at this juncture in the panel? Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So we can exclusively announce
Exclusively.
that the saga concludes with Blade Runner Tokyo Nexus Die With Honor, which will be out in November, and it is scripted by the wonderful Nancy Collins, who sadly couldn't be with us today, and some fantastic art by Mariano Taibo. And yeah, we're all very excited about it, aren't we, Rick? Yeah, it's good stuff. Do we have a bit more from David on this? There he comes.
Tokyo Nexus, the final concluding saga, Die With Honor, sees Styx and Meade finally the owners of the yoke. But how long will they hold on to it, and what is going to happen to the traitor behind the Calanthea mission? This final concluding saga is an action-packed and very dramatic saga that sees them finally confront Cheshire, discover the horrific truth behind their replicants, and try and survive a Tyrell-sanctioned purge which intends to see every single trace of Cheshire removed once and for all. This is the final chapter, and it's a stonking good conclusion.
I love Pico's modesty
We love
about the work that he does. We're now going to give you a sneak peek at some issue 1 covers. Brilliantly in my notes, it actually says, Andrew mentions we've got some exclusive fist looks at new covers from Darwin. David's a great editor, but his spelling is not always on point. So this is the VV Glass cover. I love this one. You a fan, Jeff?
Oh, I think David's sourcing for the covers has been really, really good. With a few exceptions, he's really spot on.
Yeah, we won't tell you the exceptions, but just in case you want to
I have my own personal quirks that I don't respond to certain things, but
Jeff Connor has his own personal quirks, that is very true.
that's a takeaway.
But we love all the ones you're about to see. This Dylan Teague one, I love this. Let's save that up for a second. Aurora Paul Seal. That's Planet Side Battle Mode. I love this Kit Wallace cover, this is my favourite personally. Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, they're out in November. Jeff, just to flip back, to talk a bit more about the process on the cover selection and the work that goes into that. Are you trying to follow one consistent theme, or do you prefer, I know the answer personally, do you prefer them to be as varied as possible?
You know, when I was a kid, and the cover didn't represent
long
what was
time ago.
inside the comic book, it drove me nuts. But I guess it was like a DC Marvel thing. Some people it was more like a vibe cover, and other people it was a specific instance. And what we're doing, I think they're really more vibe than story specific. And one of the reasons is that it gives us more flexibility in what covers we select, so that we're not beholden to one specific cover for one specific issue. Maybe that's a cop-out, but I think also it frees up the artist to be more creative on how they portray Blade Runner. Now, obviously, we give, here's the characters, here's the situation, but we're not art directing them down to, draw it like this and do this specific thing.
Nice one. Rick, is it time for us to talk about Black Lotus? Okay, so this is continuing the hit anime TV series. And I think we've got a bit more David Leach, right? Let's have him.
That was the end of Blade Runner Tokyo Nexus, but what about Blade Runner Black Lotus? This has been a phenomenally exciting series. It's one of my favourites. I think the artwork alone by Jesus Havas is just bonkers. This has been such an exhilarating story, written obviously once again by Nancy A. Collins, and it sees Elle, our replicant assassin that was created by Nyanda Wallace as a means of killing his father. She's been on the run since the events of the Black Lotus anime, and the comic has been following what happened at the end of that, and we've seen her saga as she tries to find her place in the world. Now she's arrived in Las Vegas. That was in volume 2. We saw her become part of this insane, not like a cult, but like this whole tribe of replicant survivors, because obviously Las Vegas is an irradiated wasteland apart from the casinos, and as we all know, replicants are very, not immune, but they certainly can survive a lot more radiation than we can. There are 2 warring casinos, one that's Roman in theme and one that's Egyptian in theme. And both of these factions live in this strange society where they pretend it's ancient Rome and ancient Egypt. And they capture humans and use them in gladiator fights to the death. It's just bonkers. Volume 2 was just superb. I adored it. It was just amazing. This volume 3 sees Elle now trying to survive under the streets of Las Vegas with both of these enraged empires, the Romans and the Egyptians, hunting for her. But she's fallen into the grips of a third replicant cult that live underground, and they're trying to create replicants who can reproduce. They get their hands on Elle, and it's a final battle. Can she survive these 4 issues? And if that wasn't enough, there's also a Tyrell-sanctioned snatch squad that have a mission to bring her back alive or her head in a box. What's going to happen? You're going to need to read it, and it is superb.
Wow. David got so excited because he blew the video apart. On that note, I would say, by the way, that the David Leach you see on the screen, he's literally like that exactly every moment of every day. That's not him in performance mode. That's just him with a regular conversation. Jeff, for fans who came in through the anime, how have you and the guys approached continuing a story that already has a built-in audience?
I was a huge fan of the anime, and I know it's divisive for some people because of the style, but I thought the storyline was great, and the character of Elle is just so endearing to me. I just love her to death. And, these and this, those are sort of new stories within the Blade Runner world, but this is a direct sequel. The first panel of the first issue takes place 5 seconds after the last frame of the last episode. So it's just carrying her on, but she's not in the city, she's escaping out to the desert. So she's wandering in a new arena for action. And after an adventure in the desert in the first volume, she gets to Las Vegas and finds these 2 warring groups of replicants. They are service entertainment replicants, not battle replicants. So they're just imbued with Egyptian or Roman culture, and they're just basically cosplaying these societies, and they really take it seriously. And Elle is kind of caught up in the middle of it. She becomes a princess, and as a princess, she gets to marry one of the kings. And I think Elle is still very young and kind of like a Candide character, and she's just trying to navigate all this stuff. And we also have other characters from the anime in the series as well. And through all this, Wallace is trying to capture her and study her for why she went rogue. So there's people on her trail this whole time while she's having these bizarre adventures in Las Vegas. And also what I like about it is there's a bit of humor to it. We don't have to be so serious all the time. Not everything is an existential threat question. And we have more fun, and she can she has a bit of a sense of humor to her. So I'm really, really happy with this series.
And what you're seeing here is the cover for our 2 Black Lotus collections, leaving LA. Las Vegas, which is one of my absolute favourites, which comes out in August. And we'll be concluding Blade Runner Black Lotus with the 3rd series next year, which is Underbelly. Again, written by Nancy, our pal Nancy, with great art actually. You'll love this when you see it, written by Jesus Herwitz. And it's great stuff. Let's have a sneak peek, issue 1 there.
What I like about Nancy's scripts is that she does all of this research. So it's not just words on paper, this person. There's all these reference photos and all this stuff that goes on to it. They're very, very thick with visual references for the artist. So she puts a lot of work into it.
So Jeff, now we've made the Underbelly announcement, we've made the Tokyo Nexus announcement. Something you and I have talked about a lot is why Blade Runner continues to resonate for everybody. And what I like about asking Jeff this question is, every time I ask him, he's always got a slight variant on this World War I theme that we've been exploring for many years now. So what's your current thinking about Blade Runner and where we can take it next and why we should take it there?
Let's see. How many here saw the trailer for the new show? Okay. Well, some of us have some homework to do. What would you say to us telling comic stories set in that time period? Yeah? Okay, so, but not an adaptation, just stories set in that time frame. It's such a fertile ground that it keeps growing and evolving. And so I think that's part of the appeal. It's not just one thing over and over and over. We're able to expand as we go. What would you say to exploring other areas of Earth, going to other cities? Should we go off-world? That's a good question.
To the moon.
Should if you've seen the trailer, you know that there's been a replicant revolution, and it takes place after that. Should we tell stories of that revolution? Great. Now, what about genre blending? You know, can we tell Blade Runner stories that have horror elements? What about rom-com? Okay, because I think the franchise can sustain a little genre blending, and we should bring more facets into it and more voices. And should we explore the other colonies? Everyone's talking about all these different colonies. That's different from just being off-world. It's kind of maybe a different part of Earth, and we'll see. But this is very valuable research, and I very much appreciate your input.
I cannot begin to tell you how happy your feedback about this is making me, Jeff, because this is dominating the conversation. Yeah, right. He never smiles. He's smiling away. So guys, the great thing about being here with Jeff, you've got to bear in mind that there's very few people walking the face of this mortal coil on which we exist who knows as much about Blade Runner and what's happening with Blade Runner as Jeff does, having shepherded it for so long. So do we have any questions for Jeff while you've got him here? We don't have a central mic, so just raise your hand. Sir?
There was a short in one of the films where Peter Whalen references the man at the top of the pyramid, which would be Tyrell.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever think of doing a story where the two of those kind of go at it corporate-wise?
Yes.
So just to elaborate, so we've got it on the recording. So this is about the man at the top of the pyramid and whether we're going to actually get into that and elaborate on that.
I think Ridley himself has hinted, if not stated, that Whalen Yutani and Tyrell know who the other is. And for us to sort of ignore that would be malfeasance in a way, or malpractice. So it's something we're thinking of, yeah.
So with the trailer release for 2099, there's been a lot of discussion in the community recently. For the question I'm about to ask, I don't think anything is off limits personally, but do you believe that there's any parts of this property that should be untouchable, should really just be?
That's a good question.
And that question is there any part of Blade Runner that is untouchable that we shouldn't go to?
There's areas that we have specifically not explored. How are the replicants actually made? You know, my feeling is that they're not constructed like cars, they're more sort of baked like bread in a way, you know, it's more of a chemical process. And we don't explain how the spinners fly. You know, obviously they have some levitating property, but what that is, you know, it was hinted at in the first film that it was some kind of internal situation, but you know, it's fairy dust that makes them fly. What can I tell you? So, you know, those it's best left off.
So there we have a Fisher cannon fairy dust. Sir.
Is there an actual Bible involved with what is and is not allowed to be touched on in the series?
You know,
So hang on, Jeff, just so for the record,
I
mate.
know, I'm just
Every time. What? No,
I'll get
it's
this down.
because he's so
Next
excited.
year I'll
I'm so excited. Is there a Bible that references everything? Does that exist? Yes. That Bible is Jeff Conn.
I was originally hired by Alcon to keep track of their continuity. So I was unofficial historian really, but it's nothing compared to, say, the Halo Bible, which is gigantic, or some of these other franchises. There's only been 2 films, and so there's not a lot to keep track of. Star Wars ain't. So there is internal documents, but I think a Bible is a generous term, more like guidelines. You know, there's an unofficial timeline just so we can keep stuff straight and we don't paint ourselves into corners. But it's not the type of massive Bible where there's character bios and all that kind of stuff, the flora and the fauna, and you know, some kind of history that goes back centuries before the franchise started or any of that sort of thing.
Anyone? Sir.
When you see videos online of robots dancing and everyone's laughing, do you see it as more as like a prophetic leaning towards a dystopian future, or do you see it as something like just kind of funny and interesting?
I think it's just funny and interesting. I like the cat videos more. And I can't get enough of people falling down. So it doesn't impact us one way or another. You know, the replicants are not robots. And it annoys me when people are talking about the replicants being programmed. They're not programmed. They might have certain traits. I mean, we see that they can be bred, as it were, for intelligence or strength or, you know, sexual prowess or managerial skills, but they're not, no one's putting a USB chip into the back of their heads to tell them what to do. It's just not like that.
Jeff, when did you first encounter in fiction, literature, comics, the concept of not the robot, but the synthetic human being? When do you think you were first exposed to that?
I know, it might have been Philip K. Dick. I was reading a lot of Philip K. Dick when I was in college. And, you know, he calls androids Andes, and a lot of his stories have the same sort of thing. And so the simulacrum and some of his stories really got into that. So it's probably Dick, maybe Roger Zelazny, maybe John Bruner, you know, sort of the California school of science fiction at that time. So I was well prepared for Blade Runner. Friends of mine were working on the Blade Runner show originally, and I read scripts and stuff before it came out, so I was ready for it to see it.
Yeah, I think for me personally, it was early 70s Avengers and the original incarnation of the Vision. Now that's the
Oh,
first
yeah.
time I ever
Yeah.
really thought, because the Vision's not a robot, he's a synthetic.
I wrote a letter to Marvel about the Vision because in one of the frames they show him reading an L. Ron Hubbard book.
Was it a positive letter, or was it? why
It's
is
like,
he reading
it's like, what the hell, guy?
Yeah.
But, you know, L. Ron Hubbard, before he went nuts, big science fiction.
It's so true. Yeah. Yes, sir, at the back.
When you were talking about other cities to explore, I think what a really interesting city to explore is based on the original book, Wayne Goy's Dream of Electric Sheep. So the San Francisco area, when that whole...
Yeah, that's a really, yeah.
So the question is, wouldn't it be interesting to explore the San Francisco area of the original book? And I think your answer would be yes, it would be
Yeah,
interesting.
that would be interesting. I think,
Since he...
Yeah, good call,
he lived in
yeah.
Berkeley, and it was very specific in the book to some of the locations.
yeah, well, he was living up there at the time, so.
Thank you.
I think A, that's a great comment, and B, we can almost certainly say we are going to do that now. So I think that's the inception of a great idea. That would be a great approach.
that'd be good.
Yeah. Yeah. From your mouth to the comic book page, sir. That's how we like to
We
do it.
respond to what you guys tell us.
Yeah, no, there we go, yes. Sir.
In reference to the original film with Roy Batty's death, Roy Batty's monologue talks of things, of battles that he had seen, C-beams glittering across the Ten Hauser Gate and things like that. And those moments would be lost. I would like to see a book in relation to those battles that he fought.
So the gentleman's question, which is a great one, is that Roy Batty's brilliant closing monologue in the original Blade Runner refers to a lifetime of conflict off-world and amazing things that he's done, saying in a much more poetic way than I'm saying it, but the gentleman got it down pat. Would that be an interesting scene for us to mine?
Well, if he was telling the truth.
Then I would say that a man on his deathbed would say,
Yeah, it was hallucinating because he was dying.
Find my tears in rain. Maybe perhaps it was, maybe perhaps it wouldn't, but I would still be interested to read it.
I mean, I guess the question is, are they implanted memories, or did he really do it? I mean, I think.
Well, that's a good question because was he made before they implanted the memories? Because it seems like Rachel is the first replicant that has implanted memories. So that means all the other ones don't have implanted memories, and that's part of the reason they're going crazy. They become unstable without those memories to calm them down.
So once again,
Yeah, so I kind of want to return to the kind of original connections between the Alien franchise and Blade Runner, like through Ridley Scott. Something that struck out to me with the latest Alien film in Romulus is the kind of first act where we see them on the mining planet itself. We see the relationship between the corporation, the people living there on a very hostile world, unlike Earth, the other locations we've seen before, and kind of relationship between kind of like scrapped androids and stuff like that. With regards to ideas for stories in colonies, in other genres, did you guys see that movie? Did that like inspire any kind of ideas like at all?
this is about the connectivity between Blade Runner and Alien, specifically Alien Romulus, and some of the dystopian stuff you see there on those colony worlds. Jeff?
Yeah, it doesn't really have any influence on us. I mean, the notion that Wayland and Tyrell may be friendly competitors or that their products are being used in a competitive way. I think there's lots of asteroids out there to mine, and you know, it's plenty for everybody. We don't really know how many settled colonies there are. I mean, that's the other about the question about stuff we don't explore. We don't explore FTL. You know, how can they just jump up to a planet like it's nothing? Again, you know, that fairy dust, very powerful.
Anyone else? Ricky? Yeah, Ricky's got no questions. He knows it all, don't we? See it coming.
So who here has, show of hands, Blade Runner tattoo? All right, come and see me afterwards.
Just to be clear, clear, we've got a nice treat for you. Two gentlemen of a certain age, I'm not into that. But yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. So, Jeff, what's your personal ride been like with all this time on Blade Runner? I mean, now that you're as many years into it as you are, and no doubt a career that you didn't anticipate having back in the day, what's it been like for you?
You know, being able to touch greatness is a big honor for me. You know, having.
Well, thanks, pal. But about
Yeah.
Blade Runner,
Is that what you call it? So, no, it's been great. You know, I vaguely associated, because I'm not in the film department, I'm not in the TV department, I'm in the publishing department, which is the purest department. But those guys can go and do their thing, and I try and help as much as I can, and they can take my advice or not. But that's originally what I was there for, to sort of help keep them on track continuity-wise in terms of mainly the timeline. You know, we've done this, we've done that, you know, and there's ways to finance anything. But working in the Blade Runner world, it's not everything I do, but it's certainly been an honor to be part of it, because it was a big thing for, I'm sure everyone knows when they first saw the first film, and you know, it was kind of life-changing for a lot of people, and it certainly was for me.
On that note, Jeff, can you talk a bit about somebody you've seen on screen a fair amount, is a big guy, David Leach. Talk about your working relationship with him, because I know you're particularly close to him.
David is great. He's the only Titan editor that I've worked with, and we're very simpatico. We have a sometimes contentious. I drive him crazy a lot of times, but it's someone I can really talk to film about. He gets all my references, so we're really on that wavelength. And we do have a shorthand when it comes to the scripts or spitballing ideas or coming up with concepts, and it's a dream, you know. And working with the writers has been great too. I mean, I think everyone on the project, they're passionate about it, and people's passions can lead to big emotions, and that's fun. But it's really been great. I think David, he's an excellent editor. He definitely catches stuff that I don't get, and then we talk about it.
Yeah. And you know, David will talk at length about his relationship with Blade Runner. As a by the by, if you want to look up some of, David also creates his own comics outside of the world of Titan. They're in a different genre. He does a lot of out there comics, but there's two things I'd recommend if you like his editorial vibe on Blade Runner. Check out two of his self-created comics. One is called Psychogram, and I think the title pretty much explains the concept of what that's about. Our beloved old granny, who's also a kind of murderous, demonic hellspawn. And then he also has got this amazing 4-part series now collected called David Leach Conquers the Universe, which is an alt-reality version of himself. In issue 1, he fights and wins against Godzilla, and that's how it begins, right? And so, and the cover is David over Tokyo with Godzilla going, boy, that's enough. Right, so anyway, check out that stuff because it's really quite wonderful. It is bonkers, as David would say himself.
Another thing that David and I agree on, and I think Titan as a whole as well, there's absolutely no AI in the creative chain of what we're doing. All our comics, all our work is all
we've got what we like to refer to as ZI in AI, which is zero interest in artificial intelligence. And that's our mantra in the office. The closest thing we have to a non-human construct is Wikipedia. And even he's going around kicking plugs out and turning the electricity off, as we've heard already. Any parting shots, Jeff? Because we're about to wend our way out of this room and back into the glorious San Diego Bay.
Keep on reading, and your support means everything to us. And
Absolutely everything.
You know, it's so nice that what we're doing is being appreciated and received, and we're just going to continue doing it any way we can, really.
Yeah.
So, you know, thank you again for your support. We really appreciate it.
And I should say before you clap us out, which I do really appreciate, one of the things to bear in mind is that you know, I know what it's like when you're in a panel, having been sat in so many hundreds of panels myself over the years. sometimes you don't ask a question, then half an hour later it's, I wish I'd asked X, Y, Z. And there's nothing we collectively love more than talking about the art form. We love comic books. We're all at 5537. If you think of something you want to ask, just come down and see us. It'd be our delight to have that conversation with you. I would also like to thank our Comic-Con volunteers, Adam, Sergey, and Sonia. Thank you so much for your hard work. We do this for you guys do it because you love it, and we will take it, always appreciate it. Thank you so much. And this is Jeff Collins, the man who